So I recently saw Dear Evan Hansen, which is the film adaptation of the musical, and I feel like before I really get into the film, I need to talk about the musical itself and the context that I have with it. So I've never seen it live on stage. I've never been to New York, but I have seen the theatrical production as a bootleg. I'm sorry, I did do that when I was in high school, and I love the musical a lot, and I still really like the musical. I think over time, like a lot of people would tell you, I understand some of the more problematic elements of the musical, but I do think that some people are kind of overblowing that on social media now. Has become very cool and hip to hate on Dear Evan Hansen, and I think a lot of people are kind of missing the entire context of the musical. Evan Hansen. A lot of people are like, well, he exploits this family who is grieving and who is sad of the death of their son. And I'm like, yes. And the musical makes it clear that's not okay. If Dear Evan Hansen ended in a tight bow and everyone just kind of forgave Evan Hansen for his problems and he got everything he wanted, I think you can make that argument. But the film actually really never does that. And instead goes for a ending that is kind of left to interpretation. It is this kid is hurt and he's damaged by life and he has PTSD and he has anxiety and he has depression. He has all of this stuff. And yet all of that still didn't justify what he did to this family. And the end is him trying to be better but understanding that he can never take back what he did. Even if he kind of got caught up in the lie on accident, he still continued it. And so I do really love the Dear Evan Hansen musical. I have a lot of nostalgia with it. Whenever it first came out, I was a senior in high school. I was doing theater, and it was a big thing for everyone there. And it always connects me back to that time. So I think it's a very warm musical for me. With that being said, this movie, man, okay. I think the most I can say is that it is based off of a source material that I think is good. But the direction of this film is off, in my opinion. There's just some moments in this film where it is just awkward. That's the biggest word I can describe this movie, is that it is a very, very awkward film. Characters kind of sing out of nowhere, and I know that's kind of what happens in musicals, but it just feels so out of place here because of how grounded everything else is. But the dialogue even is so ham-fisted and on the nose. And it does feel like something that, oh, okay, on stage, if this is an intimate setting and this show wears its heart on its sleeve, then that makes sense. But here it really doesn't, and the whole experience becomes really awkward. There's a scene where Evan Hansen singing For Forever, and he stands up at the table and he like belts his heart out as everyone just kind of sits there like just staring at him like, what are we supposed to do right now? Like characters just like kind of freeze in place anytime anyone breaks out in the song. Kind of like the musical, but in film, it is so uncomfortable. It is so weird. And it starts to feel like a parody of itself after a while. I think I was missing the direction that Tom Hooper did on Les Mis. Not Cats, Les Mis, don't worry. Even though I know a lot of people hate Les Mis, and I guess that's fine, but I love that movie because it tears away all of the gloss that was in film and just gave you a rough, intimate look at these characters. There was nothing like, and people were uncomfortable by that, and I get that. But I felt like with Les Mis, there was more of a point to be uncomfortable. It's a jarring story and it is a powerful story, but it's one that sets you into poverty, and dismay. The Evan Hansen is high school, and of course we're dealing with really heightened emotions of high school and the anxiety and depression that can come with growing up, and I understand that, and I'm not trying to say that's not uncomfortable. Obviously, it should be, but I'm talking about this filmmaking is more uncomfortable, not necessarily the subject matter itself. Even though we do get there sometimes. Um, like if I could tell her is a musical number where Dear Evan Hansen pretty much Evan Hansen, sorry, pretty much goes, yeah, let me sing about the ways that your brother to the sister of the family. Let me sing you the ways that your brother like pretty much had the hots for you, you know? And I understand he's singing his own emotions, but like the whole sequence is so bizarre and so icky, honestly. I think that's another thing. This film just feels icky because it does kind of exploit the emotions of its characters for film, which I've always hated the term emotional manipulation on film. I mean, you could argue that E.T. is like emotionally manipulative, and it's one of the best movies ever made. So like, I've always hated that because it's just like it borderlines on the critic being like, "Well, I wasn't moved by this," yada yada yada, you know. But there are times where the emotions here are so heightened, and the whole point is we have to make you cry right now, and it didn't work for me at least. Oh, even You Will Be Found features the goofiest Greatest Showman chorus looking thing I've ever seen in my life, and oh my gosh, it was just I don't know, man. It was awful. Honestly, I hated that, and so Stephen Chbosky, he's the director of this. He directed Perks of Being a Wallflower, which I also don't love, but I really liked Wonder, and I was hoping this would be more like Wonder, and it's really not. Kind of the emotional simplicity and the honesty of Wonder, I don't think is present in Dear Evan Hansen. I will say that if you are a fan of the musical, this is totally something that you might enjoy anyways, you know? It is a pretty straightforward adaptation of the musical, and it's worth seeing just to relive some of those moments, but I do think that the film overall just has a really awkward direction to it and not something that I vibed with at all.